Welcome to the No Name Brand Podcast. My name is Sashka Hanarappal, actress, singer, dancer, turned brand marketing, sales, and advertising strategist who brands your soul. And each week I bring you an inspiring person or message to help you discover your undergod, turn up your leadership notches, challenge the status quo, because you're fast and furious with a powerful message to share with the world. Thank you for taking time out with me today, and without further ado, let's get our creative and wisdom juices flowing. Yabba dabba doo, and welcome back to this week's No Name Brand Podcast with moi, your host, Sashka, where I invite inspiring and visionary guests from around the world to share their thought leadership on their form of entrepreneurship, their philosophy, using their learnings from this episode to implement today to be the change that you want to see and be in the world, because you know how important that is. You cannot have change unless you are the change. Now, in today's episode, this goes out to all the shameless sex gods. Yes, please, baby. Our next guest always wanted to travel and be a fighter pilot and an astronaut and a treasurer for Australia. He wanted his own island and have all his friends live on there with him. Sounds pretty cool, don't you think? Our next guest's dreams weren't short of adventure, community, and a zest for life. But it wasn't all roses and anointings to get to where he is today. Much like Aladdin, which is his favorite animation character, he too went from street rat to sultan. But what kind of sultan did Aladdin run towards? Well, after having so much fear and suppression around his sexual expression, the ugly, unhealthy head showed itself, excuse the pun. And deep down, he knew that there were other men and women feeling the same, but like himself, where he was unknowing of where to look for guidance. So he created a community and a space for men and women around their sexual shame, fears, desires to recognize their divine inner union, create an inner calm, which in turn creates a world that is less tense and stressful. Because let's be honest, who wants to have sex tense and stressful? Don't work, baby. Now, our next guest believes wholeheartedly that we are sexual beings. Without it, we wouldn't exist on the planet. Pretty clear. He believes we need to have sex to keep reproducing and, of course, feeling great in the process. But reproducing isn't just about the reproducing of the babies, people. It's reproducing our own cells within ourselves so that we can grow. Ever thought about that one? But this process is rarely spoken about openly and honestly because the whole world is scared and shameful about sex. Don't do that, so that we all can learn and profit from the knowledge of our being. Now, in today's episode, we talk about our guest's journey from premature ejaculation, porn addiction, and erection issues, and how his journey led him finding his safe space and a community where he's turned into a thriving business. We'll be talking about his philosophy on being a sexual human being, and of course, his tips, excuse the pun again, for you to take away today so that you too can own your phenomenal space of being a sexual being. And not just taking up space, but living in full throttle. And yet again, another pun. So let's give our next guest a warm welcome. Here he is, the one and only Tyran Mowbray. Hello, Tyran.
How you going, Shashka? Thank you. That's one hell of an introduction there.
I do aim to please. Please.
Does that go into the bedroom as well?
Well, it does. Yeah. Isn't the whole world our bedroom?
Absolutely.
Exactly. We aim to please. But we should be pleasing ourselves, not everyone else.
That's right.
Trap that I myself was trapped in, which I thought I worked on, and a few weeks ago reared its nasty claws and thought, what the, really? Again? Anyway, so you made a bold statement. There's no sexual education for us, and you are here to change that. Now, share with us how you want to implement that.
How I want to implement that change of sexual education.
Yeah.
Well, basically, when I reflect on my childhood, I was happy to come home from school and talk to my parents about my maths homework or my English studies or my science project on molecular structure of cells, or, you know, my geography assessment on Brazil and the Amazon. But very rarely would I ever come home and be like, Mum, I got a hand job in the bathroom and it felt great. But then the girl, you know, like, it's not as common conversation with our parents, with our friend, maybe with some of our friends. So yeah, basically, like, when I say that, what I stand for, what I want to implement is to create a space or a culture where conversations about sex, sexuality, relationships, emotions are just as common as everything else. Because let's be honest, there may be a very, very, very small percentage of people on the planet that don't have sex, but pretty much everyone does it, likes it, loves it, wants to do more of it, wants to do it better, wants to do it differently. And yet it's still something that we don't really talk about. Sex sells. Everything sells via sex. I mean, you can have the sexiest man or woman in the world in a bikini and they're selling a watch. You know, like, it's all over our advertising. And we have such a big epidemic at the moment with visualization of what we look like. Women are getting plastic surgery and breast implants, and men are taking steroids. And we have such a thing around health, but not a very big thing around sexuality and healthy sex, which I believe is a very, very big part of having being in health with ourselves, is having a healthy sexual education, knowing how to talk about it, having a conversation with a person that you're going to interact with. Like, hey, when was the last time you had an STD check? And like, how many people have you had sex with since then? And rather than just, should I put a condom on? I don't know. What are they like? Or yeah. So basically, sexual education is like just giving us enough self-assurance to be able to have the conversations that we deem are dirty or inappropriate or that we have fear around.
Well, obviously it starts at home, where things feel shameful and guilty. I mean, I embarrass my kids. I know growing up, my dad was very explicit about sex. And I was like, his dad wanted me to become a nun. So I was split between two worlds. It was like, I cannot speak about this. But on the other hand, my dad's running around like a headless chook, naked, and always speaking about sex. But there was never the equilibrium. So it starts at home. What, in your opinion, is a healthy conversation around sex and the education of it?
Well, I mean, just kind of knowing that we all have desires and we all have different attractions or different like things that excite us sexually, you know, I mean, it even starts before we hit puberty. You know, we're 3 years old, running around naked. No one cares that we're naked. Like, we love being naked as kids. You know, we're free. And then all of a sudden we hit a certain age where our parents' fear of what other adults may see when they look at their children is like, put your clothes on now. You have to cover up, you know, don't let people look at you. And straight away we are taught to fear our own bodies, you know. Big girls don't touch themselves, you know, keep playing with your willy, it'll fall off, you know, like they're fun, right? And I copped them, and I definitely gave them to my cousins and my godchildren who were younger than me when I was a bit younger. And now it's like, wow, we are conditioning ourselves to not like our bodies and to live in fear around nudity and sexuality from a very, very young age. I mean, even before that, some parents won't even have sex if their baby is in the same bedroom as them. Like, oh, we will scar the child. The baby came from you having sex. Like, holy shit. And it just perpetuates me. And I was always a little bit weird because I was always turned on by it. You know, I didn't care if it was people I knew or people I didn't know. I was always turned on by sex. I was always exploring. I was always touching and feeling and asking girls if I could see this and touch that and do that. And, you know, and it was like just how I was. Then I hit a bit older, and all of a sudden I started to feel shame around it. It's not okay to do that, you know. And we lose the innocence in eroticism. So yeah, it definitely starts at home, but it starts very, very young.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I was just listening just recently on the Ellen show. Dax Shepard was he was asked exactly the same question. It was fresh mum, and she was like, her kids were mentioned that they can hear their mum and dad having sex. And she asked Dax and said, how can we solve this problem? And he said exactly that. He said, what problem do you want to solve? The kid came from you. That's where it starts. That's where there's nothing shameful about it. Enjoy it. Let the kid enjoy it. Ask questions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You go look, any religion in the world tells you that, well, not any religion, but like most religions in the world will tell you that, sex is something only to be done in sacred spaces with someone. And, like in a lot of Muslim countries, the women aren't even allowed to show their body because it activates the lust in a man, and that's bad. Christian religion is the same, like the woman ate the apple, Eve ate the apple, which condemned humanity to suffering and pain and whatever and all that stuff. And it's just like so much, it's ingrained in our belief systems. Even if you're not religious, we still have the after effects of what happened when religion took over the way we live lives as humans.
So just there that you're explaining, so there's a lot of contradiction, because on the one hand, it's like, like you were saying, exploring your sexual self and questions and educating yourself. But on the other hand, it's like when you're running around naked, people are feeling attracted to you and lust. So you can't, it's like everyone's just going to be reproducing with one another. Where's the middle line? Or is there a middle line where it's like, okay, I find you attractive. I don't know if I can control myself. Who's taking the responsibility where?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, it's still a gray area, right? Because we are in this transition phase. There are, so many trainings and retreats and workshops around communication and consent, conscious kink these days. And, kink was always put in the shadow, and now there's like kink and tantra put together, or conscious. There's lots of this. It's starting to merge together, and it does start now with you as an individual. We can blame our parents, we can blame the past, we can blame other people. Like, well, the reason I don't let my kids run around naked is because there's a dirty old man that peeks over the fence. Or, we can project all of that out, and it doesn't mean that it's not real. It's very much real, but we need to learn to speak up, say something, and we need to learn to okay, so what happens if someone's running around naked and I can't control myself? What happens if I'm hanging out at a pool party and there's a bunch of naked people and there's a beautiful woman and I get an erection in the middle of that party? Should I feel shame around that? Should I feel shame that I'm aroused by a naked body? Should I feel shamed if I decide to start self-pleasuring in that moment around all these people? Should I feel and exactly your point, at what level, at what point is this wrong, right? That's different for every situation, every person, because it's the same as like family morals. Some people will be like, well, no, if someone does this, that's it, you cut them. And other people are like, well, no, they're your family, you love them unconditionally. So it's very different for every individual and every situation. But I believe personally, knowing who you're with, knowing yourself, knowing how you work, how you feel in each moment, being attuned to your own sensitivity, your own emotions, your own sexual energy, then will show you how you can navigate in each moment to create harmony and peace. And that doesn't mean that you can't run sexual energy or that you can't be aroused, but it's in a way that's not going to disharmonize or affect other people in a negative sense. Now, again, that's through trial and error. You're going to have to try things, I put myself in situations, and if I go to a place where there's people, I say, is anyone going to be bothered if I swim naked? I ask, because it's like, I don't want to offend anyone, but I want to honor my own desire that I want to get naked right now and jump in the pool. So different things like that, and it comes from putting yourself in situations that feel a little bit uncomfortable and knowing when you have to put in a boundary for yourself.
Okay. I love
knowing
that.
what you are and are not comfortable with.
Yeah. At what point was for you where you, whilst you were growing older, this is so funny, everything's just a pun. When you were growing up, at what point did you go, hang on a moment, I can make a business out of this? And the whole cycle of entrepreneurship, and then, the niche, the market, how am I going to position myself? What am I doing? What thoughts came up for you? How did you master those thoughts? We're still mastering them. Any business that anybody's running or a brand that they're building, what was that pivotal moment that made you step into entrepreneurship, and where did you start? How are you evolving in that role?
I like that you said, how am I evolving? Because to be perfectly honest, I still don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Okay. And I think this is the systems and structures part of business that I haven't really nailed yet. I just hired my first VA and I'm like, can you build me a receipt for people that pay for my shit? Is that okay? So that's where I'm at, is my entrepreneurship as far as the structure of my business. But for me, that is secondary, right? What I wanted to get in line with primarily for myself was like, what is it, as you so eloquently put at the beginning before we jump on the thing, it's like, what do I stand for? What do I fight for? What is it that I'm unapologetically standing for in the world? And that's what my business is created around, right? It started off as the Hairy Healer. I went to India and I studied yoga. I did the longest yoga teacher training I could. I'm one of those people, I have an addictive personality, right? It's just like, oh, I did this cool thing once. Let's go spend 3 months in India living it, right? So I did a 900-hour yoga teacher training. Yeah. 3 months, 13 hours a day, 6 days a week. And I broke myself.
And just to give perspective, the usual yoga training's between 200 and 300 hours.
Yeah.
Usual. So you did 900. Okay.
Yeah. And I completely obliterated my sense of reality in that training. My body did things that I never knew it could do. My mind expanded beyond any form of consciousness that I was aware of. And my perception of myself and how people perceived me also altered. We did this one exercise where you had to write one word down about it, or one sentence about each person in the training. And then someone gathered them all and wrote them all on one bit of paper. So like I got my name and I had the one sentence that everyone wrote about me. And I would always been, like, I grew up playing Aussie rules football, and someone would put their beer down, they'd go to the toilet, they'd come back, we'd make them skull, and then they'd realize afterwards that I'd pulled my dick out and rubbed my dick in their beer while they'd gone to the toilet, or we'd all pass out, we'd take heaps of drugs and alcohol, and someone would pass out. I was really good. I'd never pass out, very rarely. And so they'd wake up, we'd have pictures of my dick on their head, or, we'd shave half their eyebrows off. Or that was me. That's the guy that I was. I was the asshole. I was he's fun at parties, but he's like, that was me. And I owned that, my nickname was Moby, and that had become my alter ego. And I embellished that role, that archetype. So when I did this yoga teacher training, and all of a sudden people were like, compassionate, kind, caring, like never, I cried for about 2.5 days because that was not how I perceived me. I knew that that's what was beneath. I knew that, I knew that I was acting, but I didn't have the confidence in myself that I would be loved being compassionate and kind and caring as a man, as the man that I had unraveled in my life to be, that I didn't believe that I would be accepted in that. And when I finished my training, I downloaded Instagram for the first time, and I was like, I don't know what to call myself. I didn't want to call myself Tyran Mowbray. Didn't want to call myself Tyran Yogi or whatever. And the Hairy Healer came up. I don't know, I had a big 4-year-old beard at that stage. And then as it all unfolded and I got into sexuality, now I am just calling myself Tyran Mowbray. But the shameless sex god is really like, it was scary stepping into that role, like stepping into that new archetype. And it is a version of Moby, but I guess it's a more conscious version. It's just like, I am owning, like, be the change you want to be in the world, right? So if I want everyone to be shameless sex god, I have to be the shameless sex god to inspire, to encourage, and it's not about me being egotistical, confident, like I can please any woman in the world. No, I don't know if I can. I don't know. I mean, maybe. I don't know. Probably not going to get the time to try that experiment.
Very long time, yeah.
It's like, very long time.
Let's go with this flow. 900 hours of yoga. Let's do this now. Oh, God.
Exactly. And the thing is, shameless sex is not about pleasing other people. It's about pleasing yourself. It's about, I did a post a while ago about saying no to sex and the fear that comes up in men when we want to say no to sex, and we're not supposed to because we're men, because we're supposed to want to have sex all the time. And then we get erections when we're not supposed to. And then we can't get erections when we are supposed to. It's like the amount of shame that actually comes up around our sexuality as men. And it's not about our ability to please. It's actually about the sensitivity of our hearts that we dishonor most of the time. For me, and all the work that I've done with men, the men's circles that I run, the online programs, the trainings, that's always like the number one. That's when we get past all the stuff around wanting orgies and wanting to have open sex and blah, blah, blah. What's beneath it all is actually, I just want to be loved as I am. And that may not be in a sexual way right now.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the shameless part. The shameless part comes from being able to own that.
I love that. Isn't that deep, guys? Like, I love things like this. I love things like this. Because you mentioned something as well, when you're an evolving business, and I tell my clients, and I share this very openly, is that your business is nothing else than the mechanics and the operations. Everybody can run a business. Kids run business. We all have a website. We all have social media, speaking, whatever it is. They're just empty vessels. And what we fill it with is our brand, who we are. And what you're filling it with, and this is the most important thing, and I always say done is better than perfect, is to just get out there and spread the message, like what you stand for, what you stand against. And that will evolve. That is the thought leadership that you're putting out there. That is what you're evolving into and evolving higher. And that is what's so running parallel to our own personal growth. The brand is our own personal growth along with our own selves. But the business, the operations, I think it's so cool that you finally got a VA, because they take care of the operations. You know, they're things that suck the energy out of you, and you're like, I don't want to deal with this shit. Like, I really just don't want to, like, someone else likes this organization, you do it. And you can really focus on yourself being that shameless sex god and what it actually means to you. Because when you know what it means to you, the people buy from people, and they're going to want to see the key that they, oh my God, Tyran's got that, I want that. You know, and working together with that. Was it easy for you in the beginning to break into the market as a sex coach and teach what you teach? Or did it kind of like take a bit of getting used to and time to morph into your role as a sex leader, you know, or the sex god? Just like, oh, hang on a moment, people are actually seeing me as someone with answers. Right. Did you kind of have this, you know, the typical imposter syndrome?
Oh, I still have it.
Get over it, Tyran.
Okay. Yeah, it was like, so what happened was I went abstinent for a long time. One of the big things that I had was I don't know how to say a sex addict. Could have been, I don't define the term, but like I craved intimacy through sexuality with women to prove my own worth to myself. And that was how I filled that hole.
That's huge.
And I knew this, right? And I knew that. And so I have a very strong will, right? My will is like, if I fully commit to something, it's like not much will shake me from that. And it got to a point where it was just like, right, I need to change this, right? Like we said at the beginning, premature ejaculation, addiction to porn, things like that. And it was like, right, I want to change. And I tapped into that part inside of me that was not willing to sacrifice anything else other than to get the result. So it was like, cool. I went 3 months without sex, without intimacy, without kissing, without anything with a woman, which may not be a very long time, but when it's done with the direct intention of like, this is what I'm doing, and you're traveling Europe and you're a single Australian guy and you're a little bit funny, it's fucking hard. Because I lived my whole life as a playboy, you know, like to try and sleep with as many women as I could and never said no and just raped myself all the time. And so, you know, that was a thing that I did. And then I started reading books on Tantra and sexual energy, and I started doing the Kegel exercises, and I started self-pleasuring without ejaculation, and I failed again and again and again and again. And I went through all of that stuff. It just got to a certain point where I started to accept the part of me that was a sexual being. You know, I rather than trying to completely suppress it and ignore it, I welcomed it back in. But I had learned through that process to not be quite so attached to the outcome of these interactions. You know, by doing that, what I had done is I'd given my heart more space to open up in my body. You know, I got heartbroken when I was 16, never loved another girl until I was 23, 3 years heartbroken again, you know, like hated women, hated the whole, you know, that whole journey. And so it got to a point where I had found as much contentment in kissing and cuddling as I did in lovemaking. And then I did the yoga thing. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to recommit to this. So I did 3 months, no sex, no masturbation, no nothing while I was doing my training. And then I went back to Australia and like, I'm still a sexual being, you know, I still like sex and I couldn't shake it. So I got to a point where I did this sexuality training and it scared the shit out of me reading it and going. And by the end of it, I was just like, I'm free. Yeah, I can act like I'm 5, run around naked, touch, please, kiss, whatever, with as many people as I want, because I've learnt the tools to communicate. I've learnt to honor my desires. I've learnt to respect people's boundaries. And so it removed a whole bunch of shame around areas of my life sexually. And then I went back to laying bricks the next day, and I was like, where did I come from? Like, this reality sucks. And I was like, that's it. The world has to know this. You know, I tapped into something, tapped into my soul, I tapped into an alignment thing that I didn't have any framework for. And I just realized it's like, I have to do this, you know, and I'd already started my little Facebook page with the Hairy Healer teaching men only yoga. And I started talking about intimacy, started talking about relationships, and then I did some more trainings, and I had some more heartbreaks, and I managed to keep my heart open this time, and I learned so much. And the first Facebook Live I ever did was on porn addiction. Because like I said, to jump in the deep end with concrete shoes on and learn how to swim. So rather than doing a Facebook Live on, the intimacy of the heart, I was like, what's a thing that everyone knows? There's porn. Everyone knows about porn, right? Let's do a Facebook Live on porn. And I was just honest. You know, and that's my gift and my curse. I don't like lies. I'm just honest. And that's where I spoke about my own porn addiction. I spoke about masturbating 4 times a day to porn, working out in the mines. I spoke about not actually having pleasure. Like, I didn't actually have an orgasm when I ejaculated. I was just ejaculating. There was actually no peak experience there. And then I spoke about that journey, and I spoke about how I moved past that. And all of a sudden, my Facebook following started to grow. You know, people started to ask questions. And that's just what I kept doing. I kept exploring. I kept delving into my own subconscious and my mind and my sexual tendencies and fears. And what I've found is that the more honest I get, the more it grows, and the more people want to talk to me, and the more people want what I have, which really, I don't have it. It's not mine. I don't own it. I've just peeled back enough layers of my conditioning to get to a place of, you can't shame me because I don't shame me. Therefore I am. I just am. Yeah, you know, I still find it funny to go from a place of getting paid $30, $40 an hour to lay 50, 60 bricks an hour to now a place of getting paid, you know, much more than that, to talk to someone about their love and intimacy and relationships. And it's like, wow, I never thought that would be possible, you know, and I never realized that there was something else inside of me that I'd never tapped into. And it wasn't by trying to learn something I didn't know. It was about following something that I really liked.
I love that. So whilst you were talking, I was just thinking that gray area between, you know, where the contradiction is about lusting over someone and exploring your shamelessness as a sex god or goddess is kind of like the boundaries of no, and understanding what your no is. What is my boundary of no? And where that level is. And then I can go, okay, well, I can push the envelope a little bit over here and kind of explore that a little bit. Let's talk about porn addiction. Now, one of my clients, Ulrika Lawrence, she's from the nonprofit Do Good Now Global, and she has one mission: to eradicate porn, which is the source of human trafficking. It's a lifetime beyond mission to ensue. Now, someone who was addicted to porn, we kind of touched on this, but can you share with us what it was that would awakened you to the addiction? Because you have an addictive nature, but it's always been seen as negative as opposed to a strength that you have, and how it was destroying you rather than healing you, and why porn addiction, why are men and women addicted to porn?
Because I believe ultimately the end, like to answer the last question first, is like, because it makes us feel whole in some way, shape or form. It makes us feel normal. It's just like, it doesn't matter what dirty, perverted, twisted concept you have around sexuality, there's a video for it and you can feel like you're okay, right? So that's the last question first. The thing is, quite often we're watching stuff that's not actually really what we want to watch. It ended up there because we started somewhere else. So this searching for acceptance at the beginning led us down a rabbit hole to get to this weird twisted up video that we're watching that's actually fucking with our mental perception of reality and what we like and don't like. So it comes back to acceptance, sexual acceptance. So sexual shame. So again, don't touch a willy, it'll fall off. Then I turned 13. Then I had a wet dream and I touched it and it was amazing. I was like, oh my God, this is like the best thing ever. And all of a sudden I'm pulling my dick 5-6 times a day and feeling shame around it. So like all I want to do is pull my dick. Like that's it. Like I'm 14 years old. It's the only thing on my mind. And I can't talk to anyone about it. I can't even talk to my mates at 14 because we're still not talking about it really then, you know? I don't know if it's that normal. When I pull my penis foreskin back, this thing happens. Oh my God, is that normal? Like the suppression around general conversation around sexuality starts, it's a snowball effect, you know, like, and so all of a sudden I was like, well, am I the only one masturbating? I don't know. And then, you know, the internet, I was young enough, I'm young enough for the internet to be just starting when I was that age. And then I found porn. My uncle was living with us at the time and he had heaps of porn. So we started watching porn. It's like, oh my God, you know, 5 times a day turned into 12 times a day, basically. And I already had sexual energy runs through my body that I couldn't control. Now I was watching other people do it. And it was like, I went a bit crazy. And, you know, it's that acceptance. And then I got into chat rooms on the internet because I was like, oh, I can talk to people who have fantasies like I have, you know. It's like, wow, I'm super normal, you know, but I can't tell other people because they might not accept me. But these people accept me, so I can run my fantasies here. And then what happens is, you know, different fantasy rises. You talk to someone else who has a different, you're like, whoa, that was a bit edgy. I don't know about that. And whoa, I don't know how that made me feel. And then, but you explore that, and it's just, like I said, it's a snowball effect. And working in construction, like it also just becomes a game. Like who can send each other the most fucked up, weirdest porn images and freak each other out the most. And so for me, I was like, well, I'll win. So all I did was like, I'll win. It's simple. My will is strong. I will win. You cannot gross me out, you know, and I will do whatever it takes to win. And that was my will and that was my mentality. And yeah, so it's just a snowball effect. And when I was working out in the mines, it was the worst because I worked for 12 hours a day. That was solid. But the other 12 hours, it's like I went to the gym twice a day. I went to the bar every now and again. I would eat. But like, otherwise I sit in this tiny little fucking air-conditioned donger with 600 other guys. And basically, all we did was fucking jack off and watch porn, you know, like 4 times a day. I was 27 years old. 4 times a day, I'd jack off to porn. And I'd like wake up at 2:30 in the morning. I'd jack off. I'd go to the gym for an hour. I'd come back. I'd jack off. I'd get ready. I'd go to make my lunch, go to work, come home, jack off, go to the gym, eat dinner, come home, jack off, go to sleep. Like it was pretty much my fucking routine for like a year, you know. And on top of that, I was going to the gym and I was drinking supplements and I never took steroids, luckily, but a lot of guys out there do. And it's like, it's just a testosterone overload, you know. And it is, it's that craving for acceptance. It's like I can't be honest about my sexual fantasies with anyone. So I'm just going to watch a video and feel whole in that moment. But you don't feel whole because you're doing it by yourself. And at the end of the video or at the end of the 3 minutes or whatever it is, however long you've been going for, you feel more empty because you didn't actually get to share it with anyone. You know, you're caught in this black hole of suction that's just pulling you down, but you don't know any other way to overcome it.
And I think this is really important for the listeners to hear as well, is that it's like when you go on a diet, people are like, I want to lose weight, but it's not the weight that you want to lose. There's something more that you need, which is the emotional side of it. So the addiction, the sex, like you mentioned, what you're actually craving is the acceptance and the love. Exactly. Not from someone else. You thought it was from someone else, but it's actually for yourself and that acceptance. Yeah. But the what's the English word? Ausgangspunkt in German. The center, the source is actually, or what you think it is then porn, you know, because you think, okay, well, this is going to help me.
Exactly. So, and like same analogy when you said the diets, it's like you want to feel better about yourself in your body. You want self-love, self-acceptance. It's the same thing with sex. It's like, you know, the most loved I've ever felt was with a beloved of mine who, like, we spoke each other's dirtiest fantasies to each other. We may never actually live them out ever, but telling the woman that I loved my dirtiest fantasy and her being, oh, that's so beautiful. I have the same thing, but with men, you know, it was just like, And then hearing hers, and yes, stuff came up. Like I was like, oh my God, you want that? Like, oh my God, like you're my partner. What if we're open relating and we're in sexual containers, and what happens if it plays? And I had stories come up. But on the other side of that was like, wow, I was able to be completely honest and she still loves me.
Mm.
How can I not love this woman? How can I not love someone that loves me as I am?
Yeah. Just mirroring you, because it's actually just, if I can accept myself like that, then everyone else will, well, not everyone has their opinion, their conditioning in their minds and everything.
Yeah.
For our listeners who struggle with sexual being and identity, where do you suggest them to start moving towards a life that is filled, that is enriched and passionate with sex and sexual being, that doesn't only give your partner joy or yourself joy, but most importantly, you? Is there maybe like 3 steps or 1 step or one important thing that you want to leave with the listeners today, where they're listening and they're going, heaps of epiphanies happening? Where do I start today? Because I'm very about great to learn knowledge, but without application, it's
practical reality.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what practical reality do you want to give to the listeners today?
Self-pleasure. If I had to recommend one thing to every single person on the planet to deepen, it's their own self-pleasure practice, right? And stop calling it jerking off, stop calling it masturbating, stop calling it flicking the bean for the women, like stop calling it this shit, stupid analogy where you're just chasing your peak orgasm, and start calling it self-pleasure, because that's what you're doing. You're pleasuring yourself. It's a form of self-love. Now, that doesn't always mean it's going to be genital focused or sexual focused. Self-pleasure can be going to go get a massage for an hour or an hour and a half. That can be self-pleasure. Allowing yourself to receive. And because the deeper you go into your own self-pleasure, the more you're going to know what you do and what you don't like, what you do and do not want. And from that place, you can learn to communicate to your partners, whether that you're in a relationship or not. At any point, anyone that you interact with on an intimate, physical, or emotional or energetic level, you're going to know what to communicate. Now, it's going to take time. It's going to take time for this transition. It doesn't, just because you self-pleasured for 20 minutes every day for 3 months doesn't mean all your communication skills are going to evolve into complete harmony. But it's going to start. You're going to know what it feels like in your body to be loved and adored by yourself. Therefore, you know what it's going to feel like when someone else does it. And therefore, you know what you will and will not put up with. And be like, actually, I'm a no to that, because that doesn't align with what I know I like. And I can either say no, and that's it. Or I can say, hey, I'd rather not do that right now. Can we please try something else? And yes, it's going to be confronting. It's going to, if you're in an already long-term relationship and you're actually going to say no to something that he's done or she's done for 10 years, and you've never really liked it and you've never really spoken up, yeah, it's going to create some stuff. But are you going to sacrifice the rest of your life, something that you don't like, just to keep someone else happy?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, the first thing, self-pleasure, really self-pleasure all the time. Like I do it minimum 20 minutes a day, and I try to do it twice a day if I can. So that's the first step. Second step, sound, breath, and movement while you're self-pleasure. Move your body, undulate, sound, breathe, move the energy, give yourself permission to feel all of the pleasure. One of the greatest orgasms I ever had by myself, I was laughing for 20 minutes. Like I got to a place, I was laying on my bed, I started making noise. Noise is a big thing for men. It's not something we do, and women generally, but especially men, We sit in the bedroom when we're 14, jacking off, being really quiet because we don't want anyone to hear us. If mum and dad walk in, who knows what's going to happen. And so all of us, but we definitely teach ourselves to contract during pleasure. We need to teach ourselves to expand. So yeah. And then 3, like start practicing communication techniques. I mean, you can go to workshops and trainings and blah, blah, blah. But we have this amazing thing called the fucking internet. And that internet pretty much has everything you ever need on it for free. So that's step 3. Like do your own work on yourself. Learn what you like. Learn what you don't like. Secondly, learn to express your own pleasure. Learn to give yourself permission to feel and receive. Step 3, learn how to communicate that, learn how to start taking steps towards it. I know in Germany and Europe and Australia and America, there are sexual tantric communication relationship facilitators everywhere now. Maybe they're everywhere in my world because that's the world I'm in, but for me, they're absolutely everywhere. It's not hard to find a relationship workshop or a communications workshop or a tantra workshop or whatever. They're everywhere now. So if you don't want to do the internet thing, or you're too scared to do it with your partner one-on-one, and invite them to a thing and go together and experience it. It's really, there's no excuse.
There is no excuse, exactly.
Not these days. Ignorance is a choice. Ignorance is a choice these days.
So true. Oh, my darling, I am here to interrupt this interview just really, really quickly to inform you that I have something for you if you are new to business and you need a business plan. I have a breakthrough business plan just for you. All you need to do is go clickety-click all the way to learn.brandsashka.com and you will find it. Woohoo! And now let us get back to the interview. Au revoir. Tyran, I have 2 questions that I ask all my guests near the end of the interview. One of them being, how do you want to change or alter the world doing what you do?
I want everyone to be free, naked, and having sex with everyone else.
With everyone else. Okay, this is going to take a lifetime, people. Those generational things is going on for a lifetime.
No, well, I mean, at the essence, when I say, okay, maybe not having, making love, when you say making love. So love can look a million different ways, Yeah, I want everyone to be in love with everyone and not have the jealousy, fear, contraction, conditioning. There is space for everyone to have their own desire, fetish, whatever. They just need to find the space that's appropriate for them to be able to express that.
Yeah, love that. What is your take on 3 of my core values and what they mean to you? So fill in the blank. Passion for you is?
Life force. It's passion is the thing that drives me.
The will. Doing it.
It is. Yeah, it comes from passion. It comes from
Wisdom for you is?
Lived knowledge. Or knowledge to experience.
Knowledge to experience. And creativity for you is?
Oh, a mystery. Creativity for me is, well, on a spiritual sense, creativity is a transmission from the void. It's a transmission from the galactic center, or the dark hole, the black hole at the center of the galaxy. It's a transmission from nothingness into something.
Yep, that's pretty much how I see it as well. Creativity, it's what you create, something from nothing. Thank you, Tyran, for being here with us. And for our listeners, you can find out more about Tyran. He is on Facebook, and you spell his name Tyran Mowbray. So if you're listening and you're going, oh, damn, how do you spell that? This is how you spell it. And you'll find more information in the notes as well. Favorite book, favorite quote, and how you can get in contact with him on Facebook and on Instagram. He's on both. And
Instagram is shameless sex god.
There we go. And get in contact. He has a program that he is starting. I think I have it over here. Yes, a membership for men called the Priests of Phallic Power that he is starting and putting out into the world and assisting with men. And obviously, if you're a woman as well and looking to just get insight from a masculine and feminine perspective, it's not being taught about the masculine world or men world. It's more just the balance of the yin and the yang energies and how you can balance and or align those two within yourselves. Get in contact with Tyran. And thanks so much for your wisdom and for honoring your path and having that will and determination and passion and addiction to wanting to be the best and be the leader and honor that and being a shameless sex god.
Thank you, Shashka. It's been great to be here. I appreciate your honest, direct questions, your beautiful introduction. And it's been a beautiful platform. And thank you for inviting me on. It's been great.
It's awesome. Thank you so much. And listeners, remember to be fast and furious and be the change that you want to see in the world. Love you lots. And I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye. Dang, that was just supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I enjoyed having you on board, and please do me and you a favor. Head on over to iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. Click subscribe, and a super bonus, leave your review and you stand a chance of being announced and advertised on the show. I'm always striving to ensure that your brand is uplifted and empowered. Remember, done is better than perfect. So be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and send in your feedback too. You're the absolute best. Keep rocking.